Thank you for tuning into Cytology 101. I'm your host, Sydney Robinson. We'll get into the challenges of the dental industry, empower leaders to inspire their teams, and foster collaboration between office team members and practice owners. Together, we'll find creative solutions to get shit done. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cytology 101. I am super giggity about today's episode because I have one of my favorite human beings on today, Julia. She is our Dental Success Member Relations Manager. And fun fact, Julia and I both work with Dr. Mark Costas in his dental practices. And I think she has so many juicy things to share with us. So thank you so much, Julia, for joining us.
Thank you, Sid, for having me today. It's such a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited to jump in and talk all things scheduling and everything you have going on. I'm super excited.
Yeah, when we were planning out the schedule for this month, and he's like, "Oh, we're going to talk about scheduling a goal, as we talk about team members' point of view." And when I thought about it in some of my lectures, a lot of people have heard me say Julia. And I was definitely afraid of Julia. And if I messed up, Julia was coming for me. She was not playing games. And in the most respectful way, though, like you're such a sweetheart. And I think that's what made me even more afraid because it was so nice and polite. They're like, wait, what did I do? I disappointed Julia of all people. So I think that you have such a great insight, and I can't wait to get into this episode with you. So first, let's start off with this. Let's start off with Julia. Tell us about you. Tell us about your role when you worked in a dental practice.
So, when I worked in the dental practice, funny fact, I did the dental assisting school. I stepped into my first full mouth extraction and I said, this is not the place for me. I love a good schedule. I'm super organized. I like being on time. What else can I
Yeah.
do? And so they put me in as a hygiene coordinator. It just worked that they had that position open. And so I kind of learned all my dental terminology and then just transitioned right into hygiene coordinating, which
Yeah.
I absolutely loved. And it was a very good place, especially as a team member, being new in dental. Stepping in and learning how to schedule hygiene first, I think helped me down the line to understand scheduling to goal in general across the board for hygiene and more for doctor side as well.
Do you feel like going in, by the way, you went through Mark's dental assisting school, right?
I did, yes.
You did. Do you feel like going through the dental assistant school, not only with the practice owner and understanding like his philosophy and how to be a great assistant, do you feel like it gave you a leg up with when they put you in that hygiene scheduling position?
Oh, absolutely. Jumping on the phones, I had the background on how to talk, kind of use that dental lingo that I
Mhm.
didn't have prior to that. I feel like if I would have just jumped into that scheduling hygiene coordination position, that I wouldn't have known how to communicate as well with patients over the phone or even understand in morning huddle or when the team was talking. So many
Yeah.
things flew over my head in the beginning, and having that foundation was super helpful for me to just understand what was going on around me because it's overwhelming at first.
It is. It's a lot, especially in because I was in Chino. So that was I think it was three doctors, no, two doctors at that time. And I think you had four hygienists at one point. It was a lot going on. And then to be like, hey, I think I'm gonna be a dental assistant, your mindset has to change. Ugh, I hate this. This is terrible. I'm gonna be a scheduling coordinator, but then for hygiene hygiene can be tricky on its own. I know we talk a lot about the doctor side, but let's be real. Our hygienists are divas when it comes to their schedule, right? And
100%.
so the first question, if I was someone starting out, right, from a team member point of view, I'm new. You already told me that one thing that really helped you in this position was understanding dentistry, understanding the lingo. But then when you pivot and you not only was talking to patients, but you're looking at the schedule, how did you master scheduling for your hygienist where you were keeping a productive schedule? What was some tips that you would give people that are listening?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think number one place to start is communicating with your hygienist. Each
Mhm.
individual person is going to have a specific way that they like to do things and how many minutes they want for something specific, right? I had a hygienist who was able to do perio in 30 minutes. She wanted her perio maintenance appointments at 30 minutes. I had another hygienist who wanted those perio blocks in there to be more 60 minutes. And so it's communicating with your hygienist and saying, okay, this is the production goal, right? This is our daily production goal. Here are some things, some preferences that you have in your schedule. And from my end, this is how I can help you reach that goal. So, how can we compromise with things we both want to put together a schedule? I like using blocks personally that
Mhm.
matches is going to help you to hit that daily goal. And you're not always going to see eye to eye with each other. Sometimes they're going to say, I need more time or I'm running behind, but it's really keeping that open line of communication, checking in. There were days where if we had a little break, I was going back and helping flip the room for my hygienist. I wanted them to know I'm here to support you but
Yeah,
you're also here to support me. We're on the same team with this schedule and we're
yeah.
trying to have you reach your goal. And so that's some of the tips that I used, especially being brand new. The hygienists were
Mhm.
like, wait, you're new. You don't know what you're talking about. And I said, I have this goal I have to reach. So how can we get there?
Yeah, yeah. You know what I love about that, what I hear is that the ego was checked at the door. Like it's not about, okay, for example, I love what you said about one hygienist, it's 30 minutes. Another hygienist, they may want more of an hour, but in coaching, sometimes people ask me, well, how long does it take for repair maintenance? And I want to tell them on average it's anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the patient. But then what happens when you have a green hygienist who isn't as fast? But then you're saying, okay, well, our best practice is we have to give you 30 minutes. So you got 30 minutes to get this done. One thing that I learned from Mark was, would you rather type thing? Would you rather schedule 30-minute perio maintenance with a super green hygienist and then your patient come back and is like, oh, I don't feel like she cleaned my teeth really well? Or would you want to meet them where
Yeah.
they're at? I know a lot of our coaches talk a lot about this too, is eventually we can get them trained up to where we want to be. I just think that sometimes we get so caught up in, well, we have to do this or we have to schedule at 30 minutes. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You just got to get up to speed. I think that as leaders, that's a us problem. That's not a them problem. Because if you hired a green hygienist or someone who's not that fast, then did you set expectations in the beginning? Because if not, you probably should have. I love that you said that. Now, with this though, sometimes our hygienists, you said communicating and checking the ego is what I got out of that at the door when it does come to maybe you don't see eye to eye. When you didn't agree with your hygienist, or maybe there was a challenge that came up during the schedule, what was one of the ways that you've handled that where it was a win-win for you and your hygienist?
Oh, that's a really good question. So you're in the middle of the day working in the dental office. We all know this. You're in the middle of the day and things are going, and maybe we're running a little bit behind. And then a situation happens where maybe a hygienist wants to schedule something, put something in their schedule that isn't in a realistic block. They're not going to meet production, or they're saying, I can't do this appointment in the time that you've given me to finish, and I'm running behind and I'm frustrated. Something that I used is at the end of the day, I would try to have a conversation with them, go into the good old break room and just
Yeah.
say, how did this make you feel? And how did it make me feel? And where can we meet in the middle on this to know what
Ooh.
cues can we during the day to say, I'm running behind, I need
Mhm.
help, or I have this patient that really needs to get in to see this. How can you help me adjust my schedule to make sure we're hitting production, but I'm also able to put this patient's needs first? Because at the end of the day, hygiene is the foundation, and we always want to put our
Yep,
patients first. And so just working and communicating in a healthy way. We don't always have to see eye to eye on everything, but how can we meet in
exactly.
the middle and compromise to make it
Yeah.
so that we're leaving at the end of the day and we're not neither one of us is feeling bad about the way that our day went.
Yeah, we learned this in our team retreat a couple weekends ago, where Addison had said there's an option A, there's an option B, but there's also an option C. And so it doesn't always have to be A, B. It doesn't always have to be black or white. There could be another option, but if we just communicate, and I love how you said, how did that make you feel? Because that's not just going in and telling someone, well, you have to do something or you didn't do this. You're always running behind. It's like, okay, we ran behind today. How did that make you feel? And I think it's building that relationship of, I never want you to feel stressed out, or I don't want you to feel like you have to catch up and you can't catch your breath. How can we work together where this doesn't happen again? With that said, what do you think caused us to run behind? I love that you have that more personable conversation with your hygienist. This may be another tough question. You are a hygiene scheduling coordinator and you're working with your hygienist. How did you create that relationship with your hygienist without getting your leaders involved in this? Because neither of you guys are leaders, which I found fascinating. You created this relationship and camaraderie with your hygienist just on your own. How did you get there?
So I think for me personally, I was really lucky when I first took this role. I had a fantastic hygienist, somebody
Mm,
who had been there for a while. She knew what she was doing, and she really took the time to say, Julia, this is how I like my schedule, and here are some tips and tricks. And let me walk you through what it looks like during my hygiene appointment so that you're aware, kind of play by play, what I'm doing in that appointment so you can watch that time and see what's happening. So I felt really lucky that I had that relationship right off the bat with the first hygienist I really worked with closely. And then from there, when I continued to work with new hygienists, I tried to build that same relationship, right? I tried to say, okay, I had this awesome experience and it was so fun working with this person because we understood each other and we just knew, right? Okay, this is where we're at. And it was easier with some, it was harder with others, different
yeah.
personalities, different opinions on everything. But I think just trying to constantly communicate and then come from as an office, we're a team, but then
Right.
hygiene, we're all a team. I'm here to support you and I want you to hit your production, but I need you to be here to support me as well. And during morning huddle, having that quick conversation with that hygienist, checking in. Is there anything we need to go on today? Doing route
Mm,
slips at the end of the day. Hey, this is a review of your route slips tomorrow. Do you have any questions for me on these patients coming in? Is there anywhere we
yeah.
need to touch base and communicate ahead of time? I
Yeah.
think those were things that really helped build that relationship.
Yeah, I absolutely love how it wasn't like front versus back. I think Mark was the first office that you worked at for dental wise, but for me, I had worked maybe three or four terrible offices before then. And there was always this division, like front versus back. And what I loved when I came to visit Chino was it wasn't like that. It was like everybody was working together and it was, okay, I may be here, I may be there. And I don't want to say like it was always sunshine and rainbows because there was drama. Every once in a while, something would happen. Someone would have something to say. But that camaraderie was there where you can have those type of conversations. In when you talk about scheduling to goal, and you talk about how does this make you feel if we're running behind, coming from a team member perspective and working with your hygienist, how did you understand what it means to schedule to goal for your hygiene department? Everybody knows we talk about 3x your hygiene department, and everyone, your hygienist should be making three times their salary. Coming in as someone who has no idea what dentistry is, being put in this scheduling position, you built this awesome relationship with your hygienist. How did you understand what it meant to build a profitable hygiene schedule?
Yeah, that's another really great question. And to be completely transparent, in the beginning, even though it was explained to me, I don't really think I fully understood. I was kind of like, I think there's Okay, when I first started, I thought scheduling is about filling time. And that's just not true. That's just not true. It's about designing these blocks in our schedule that helps
Yeah.
your production goals and your efficiency. And I did not have
Yeah.
any concept of that. I was like, I can put appointments in and make this look full. Right? I was like, "Hey, okay, we're doing great because it's full." And they were like, "No, Julia, we're not doing great." Um, I I had a really great leadership team who broke it down and was just like, "Hey, this is our average daily production from the past 3 months. This is what your hygienist should be making." I think at the time it was between $1,200 and $1,300. I don't know if that's still, so I think that's still pretty accurate. And then helping those blocks go in and saying, okay, like let's look and see how many SRPs this hygienist has done in the past 3 months so we can
Mhm.
find how many blocks we need to add into that provider's day. So maybe two
Right.
SRP blocks. Then we have the rest of those 60-minute blocks for recall, perio, and then saying, where do we want to add those new patient appointments in? How long do they need to be? Staggering them throughout the day, as well as always following up like sealants, fluoride.
Mhm.
Even if insurance isn't covering, are we treatment planning for fluoride? Do we have an opportunity to get extra production in that? And, those things were all explained to me. It definitely took me time to get there and learn it. But yeah, those were
Yeah.
just some things they showed me.
I find that super fascinating. And I know we're in that unicorn office that it was explained to us. Between the both of us, you and I think the exact same when it comes to if I can see the puzzle pieces clicking together and I understand the why behind something, just say less. Because now I understand the why behind it. And now I understand, okay, if I did this, then this means that you will actually accomplish this goal. I know you like Legos and you do like puzzles. And it's just like it clicked for
Do.
us. It was like, oh, wait, so all I have to do is do this, this, and this. And if I put this here, then boom, nailed it. We have it. For team members that are listening, I don't know about you, Julia, but I found that people that came into our organization that didn't have that mindset of I want to understand the why, those people didn't last that long with us. Or the people that was thinking like, oh, it's all about the money. It's really not about the money. It's about our numbers tell us a story and it's a byproduct of our success. And I absolutely agree with you. When I first started with the office, I'm like, I can fill a schedule all day. Let me go ahead and put this on here. I can convert treatment. I can get yeses and increase that case acceptance. I got you. And then it was like, Sydney, we're not meeting goal. Excuse me, sir? What do you mean? The schedule is full. But it was because we weren't scheduling strategically, and then we would have to go and play catch up. We would have to go in, and now it's like, okay, we got to figure this out. Or we were converting treatment, running behind because we're trying to do same day treatment, all that jazz. So, another question that I think a lot of people who are listening could benefit from is how did you respect the schedule? So you said I understood that my hygienist had to make 12 or $1,300 a day. We created these blocks, we have this conversation. But what happens when a Sydney comes in and they don't have that conversation with their hygienist? And now someone is messing with that schedule. And this is where, guys, I started to get afraid of Julia because she would tell us. So tell me, how did you help your team members respect that hygiene schedule so that you didn't have to go and play catch up?
Oh, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of different layers. The first thing I picked up on though was when you said respect the schedule. I think that's such an important point because even for me, I fell into this a lot. I had tunnel vision on my 3 columns of hygiene and I wasn't looking across the entire schedule. And I wasn't thinking, okay, where is the doctor at? And what does
Mhm.
assistant time look like? And is it going to be realistic for the doctor to step into this new patient appointment that I scheduled right here? And so I think that it's really looking at the schedule as a whole. Yes, we have our areas that we focus on, but it's looking at everything. It all needs to fit together. And then saying from there, if something does get scheduled in the wrong place. So if something is scheduled over a block, if I have a recall over my perio block or over my SRP block, it's having that conversation and first finding out, right, if I'm not the one who scheduled it, can you tell me why this was scheduled here? Because maybe there's a good reason for it that I'm not aware of. And I have to give somebody the opportunity to explain to me why it was placed there. And then from there, communicating on, okay, I understand this is why this happened. How can we make sure that moving forward, that these set blocks that we have in our schedule are going
Right.
to be filled correctly because it's for everybody's benefit.
Mhm.
Or looking out in advance and saying, hey, if you know that you're going to have X, Y, and Z coming up or that this is happening, can we look at the schedule together in advance and move some blocks around so that it
Mhm.
works best for you? Just having those conversations. I think it all comes back down to that communication piece again, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I've had this encounter where there's a A option, there's a B option, and there's a C option. And we all know that chaos happens. We have a patient, oh my God, I'm going out of town. I got to get in for this SRP. It's so urgent, right? We have those things that happen. Or, hey, my friend is coming in and they need to have blah, blah, blah done. Or this patient can only come in at 2. We have those situations that actually happen. And so, if I had to think about how Julia would handle this situation, one, I know that I shouldn't put this prophy or recare in this SRP spot. Because if I schedule that and we were to, let's say it's 2 weeks out, if I do that, that doesn't give us the opportunity to fill that spot. If there's a
Mhm.
special circumstance that happens, then I need to let everybody know what that special circumstance is. If Julia decided she's going to go to Italy with her husband, I want her to come back and look at her schedules like, nailed it. And so that means that, let's say that one off thing happens. If that person even isn't there, then I'm going to put my notes in the appointment notes. I'm going to say, hey, spoke with doctor or spoke with hygiene team. We're going to make this special circumstance. Patient is getting married in 2 weeks, or it may not even be that dramatic. Like, hey, we want to accommodate. Maybe the patient didn't have a great experience, or something happened, and we got to make that exception to the rule. Communicating, putting notes in, because what if you're out sick and now they're looking at Sid? I don't understand why Sydney put that there, and then now I got to go and talk to Julie about it because she's going to get me in a really polite way. So it's like communicating even when that person isn't there is going to be super huge too, with putting your notes in and putting it somewhere where everybody understands. And something else that I like that we do that I talk a lot about in my one-on-one coaching is that we ask, are there any scheduling issues or concerns? And every department has the opportunity to say, yes, we do have a scheduling issue. We don't have, let's just do a capacity one because I know this has been an issue. We are
Yep.
all out of new patient appointments. We can't get anyone in for three months. We're really struggling with that. And so it would be helpful if we can come up with a game plan. If we can have those type of conversations, then now just think about your phones. You mentioned earlier how because you had a leg up and you went to dental assisting school and you understood the terminology over the phone, you felt confident. Well, if I feel confident that, okay, although we don't have anything for 3 months, then we said that we can put someone at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock and we'll have a floater over here to accommodate those new patients, right? Now you feel good over the phone. You can talk to your patients or when you're treatment planning, those type of things. And so I wholeheartedly agree with the communication piece. And I want to pivot now into the peer-to-peer accountability because that's something that essentially we haven't said those words, but that's essentially what you're doing. So naturally, you've developed this trust and vulnerability with your peers, with everybody in your office. How did you think that you accomplished that? How did you create this positive environment where people did feel good about saying something that they did wrong and owning their actions, or like, hey, girl, you nailed that. Thank you for doing that. How did you create that camaraderie within your team?
I think, and this is more going to maybe towards my position today. I really try to lead by example. So what I have found that if I am the first person to admit when I make a mistake, or
Mhm.
if I get vulnerable with other team members and say, oh my gosh, I know I messed up on this. Here's what I can do better next time, and this is how I'm going to fix it. If that's how I communicate with my team, that is how they communicate back with me. So if I open up that door and say, it's okay to admit when we make a mistake. Mistakes happen and it's going to happen. How are we going to learn from it and how can we fix it moving forward? And just
Yeah.
kind of reiterating that over and over again and saying, hey, it is what it is. I'm not upset. We don't need to be upset about it. But
Mm.
what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? That's one thing that I've used. The other thing, especially when it comes back to communication, back to talking on the phone as a team member, reactive. So if we're not
Yeah.
practicing how we're communicating with people, especially when we're in a position where we have to pick up the phone, I promise you that you can have the perfect schedule or you can have the perfect day set up. And if we're reacting based on our emotions to what somebody else needs, we're going to put that appointment in the wrong spot.
Yep.
We're going to get bamboozled. We're going to stick it in the wrong spot. And
Yeah.
so how can we be proactive? How can we practice and how can we guide patients when we're talking about scheduling or team members when we're talking about leadership? How can we guide them in the direction of success through
Mm.
communication? Those are a couple things that I've used and things that I've done horribly as well and had to learn from. But those
Yeah.
are probably my two biggest
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that sometimes we just did our group training call and we were talking about difficult conversations. And it's really enlightening now that we're talking more and more with team members that sometimes team members are like, that's upper management problem. They're hoarding those emotions because maybe someone doesn't like confrontation. But it's just that we've never really had the practices or the tools. How do we handle these conversations? And something for me that when I think back on old Sydney and how I was a terrible communicator, what changed for me was the fact that our leaders in our practice, they put the same content in front of us. Listen to this podcast, read this book. Hey, did you hear this? It was really a community within our office that we held each other accountable for one, we don't talk to each other like that. That's a non-negotiable. We can have a healthy conversation, but keep your side comments out in the streets because this doesn't happen here, right? I love that we did that, but I have to think back to that was a leadership thing that was put out there. And obviously, it's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows. But when we think about peer-to-peer accountability and being able to trust and say, hey, I made a mistake, I felt that I could say I made a mistake and no one's going to jump down my throat. No one's going to say, oh, she's stupid. She doesn't know what she's doing. Fire her tomorrow. Like she needs to go. I never felt that. I would make a mistake and someone's like, okay, wait, hang on. Tell me more about it. Or here's what I would do if this happened. And now I'm going to learn from that mistake. But in this particular coaching call, she was like, well, we talked about it. We've done all the things. I've given her all the tips and tricks, right? Guys, there are real psychos in the world. There are crazy people in this world, and there's no amount of communication tips or tricks that will help you with this. Even if we think about our leaders, I hate and cringe, and I know that sounds like a really harsh word, but it makes me so sad when I hear someone's like, oh, well, my doctor wouldn't do that, or my doctor wouldn't do this, or my office manager does that. I'm not saying that all of our leaders were perfect, but I can tell you one thing for sure. All of them had a continuous education and open mindset to where if there was a problem, we were in it all together to fix it. And it makes me so sad when not everybody has that openness where they can have those type of conversations with their leadership team. And so I love that you mentioned that you did have such a great leadership team that as a team member, before you even pivot into a leadership role, you felt comfortable enough to own those mistakes. Um, and you felt comfortable enough to build this type of relationship with your team members. When you became the member relations manager for Dental Success Network, now you're in a whole new different area. You're no longer a team member, and accountability is something completely different at this point because now you really not only do you have to hold them accountable for those actions, but if those things don't get done, now you have to have those difficult conversations with your team members. And so I want to pivot a bit to the leadership part of this. What was something that, as a leader, now that you have to corrective action here, or we call it the PIP, how did you pivot from being a team member and holding team members accountable for those things?
Oh boy. Yeah, that it's a tough transition. It's a tough transition, especially if you are a team member and so you have a pre-existing relationship with the rest of the team and it's that peer to peer and then all of a sudden you're transitioning into more of that leader role. At first it's like, "Oh my gosh, it's going to be awkward to have to hold this person accountable or go to them and say, "Hey, this didn't get done. Can you explain why?" The biggest thing for me that I think I learned because I was not great at it in the beginning, I would always be like, I'm so sorry that I have to come and tell you this, but
Yeah.
why did this report get done? You know, and why am I apologizing?
Yeah.
Why? And then that didn't, people didn't take me seriously in the beginning, right? My team didn't take me seriously because I didn't have that confidence in myself to
Mhm.
necessarily step up and say, hey, there's a time and place for me to be your friend. And then there's a time and place for me to say, hey, I took a look at this. I appreciate everything you do. However, here are some corrections we have to make moving forward to ensure that it's getting done.
Mhm.
No hard feelings. Let me know if you have any questions. How can I support you? But that just takes practice, I think. And knowing at the end of the day that if I'm not holding my team accountable, they're
Mhm.
not going to hold me accountable. There's a healthy way to hold all team members, regardless of where you're at, accountable. I want my team to hold me accountable so that I can grow and be a better person. And when I'm not holding others accountable, then I am doing a disservice to them, to their
Yeah.
growth, to the experience they're having. I want my team to feel passionate about what they're doing in their position, in their roles, feel like they're participating. And if I'm not giving them that feedback, then how are they going to grow? And again, amazing leadership team who held me accountable and gave me
Mhm.
healthy feedback and said, here are areas where we want to see you grow. It's nothing personal. And I learned it from my leaders in saying, this
Yep.
is a healthy way to do it. And I'm so grateful that I had that feedback because now this is where I'm at today. So that's how I try to think of it. It's going to be hard in the beginning, like anything, but
Right.
practice and having those difficult conversations. Looking back, I was afraid to have difficult conversations. And while they can be uncomfortable today, I'm not afraid to have those conversations anymore. I know that's part of life, just
Mhm.
across the board whether you're at work, in your personal life, difficult conversations need to happen. And I always feel so much better after I've had them. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Because you've gotten that off of your chest. I know for me, I know you and I have been working together for 4 years now, maybe a little bit more. No, four. I don't know. Maybe a little bit more. Time is always goes too fast for me. But I've seen the growth, and I think between the two of us, we've seen the growth from the transition from the dental practice, then moving on to DSN, and then we've grown in those leadership roles. And I have to say, one of the most impressive things that I saw for you was when you went from being a team member in the grind. You're what we like to call the trenches. We're out here in this grinding this out, and we pivot to that leadership role. I think for the both of us, we also felt like we had to work 3 times as hard because now we are in this leadership role. And I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, it was I still got to accomplish these things that I used to do. But also, I want my team members to know just because I've excelled and I'm now a manager or leader in the practice, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to work 3 times as hard. It's not going to mean that I'm not going to go out back there and clean the operatories or whatnot. So I found that I had to learn that balance as well of what does it mean to actually lead the team versus manage the team. So for you, I would love to know your opinion. Did you find that it was hard for you when you did go from the hygiene scheduling coordinator? up to a leadership position where you were now, quote unquote, managing your team members?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think in the beginning too, and said you probably remember, um, I struggled in the beginning.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that I struggled with. I have the mindset, right? I think like you said, I think we're similar in this. I'm hungry. I have the mindset like I always need to be moving. I need to prove that I can do this. And
Yep.
I also want my team to know that just because I switched to a different role, that doesn't mean that I won't do whatever needs to be done. Like I'll still get on the phone. I want them to know that I'm there for them. I understand where they're at. But then I think it comes to a certain point where I'm not helping the entire team when I'm staying so involved in that. And so
Yeah.
that kind of looks at what can be delegated. What
Mhm.
can I delegate? What can I train on and make sure they have good resources to follow through with so that I can focus on these maybe just other types of projects and things that are going to support us as an entire team. That was probably the hardest transition for me, as well as saying I lacked patience in some areas. And I was saying, I don't want to have to explain to you how to do this again. So I'm going to jump in and just do it.
Yep.
I'm just going
Yeah.
to take care of it. It will be quicker, it will get done. And that set my team members back a lot. And I had to really recognize that and look at that and get vulnerable with you about that and say, what are some tips and tricks that I can do to help delegate, help listen to my team more? What do
Mhm.
they need? How can I support them without me needing to micromanage and be like in the middle of things? Because I was just in there
Yeah.
messing it all up. Like, we got this, Julie. And I was like, I don't know. Do you?
Right. Do
I
you?
had to
Like,
take a
talk
step
about
back
it.
and yeah, and say, okay, I trust you. Yes,
Yeah.
I need to let it go, which was hard. It's always a hard thing to do.
It is. It's also hard when you do get to that position, like, made it. But then, like, let's stick to the hygiene schedule. I
Mhm.
I built it. This is my baby, right? We put this together and you have to respect the schedule. Now, if you go in and you mess this up, you and me, we may have problems and we may have to take this to the parking lot. That was like my mindset. Like, don't mess with my baby. But then I found that I was lacking empathy because I felt as if I was in your position. I did this. There's no excuse to why these things can't be done in a timely manner other than either it's time management, you aren't focused on it, you don't know how to do it, or you just don't want to do it. Those are mainly those
Yep.
things. And so I found that I lacked empathy when I first moved into a leadership position, like girlfriend or dude, come on. So when I think about being in a leadership position, pivoting from you were scheduling coordinator, hygiene coordinator, you are now became like the manager of all of these people. How do you balance it all? You just mentioned that you had to learn how to delegate to your team members. You had to trust, you had to stop the micromanaging. Once that happened, did you feel like a weight was off of your shoulder? You had a healthy balance from work to home. How do you balance all of that now that you're in this leadership position?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think for work specifically first, I think that really putting team members in the right places, so looking at what they were really good at and what they were passionate about and then getting them in those roles made the delegation easier because like you said, like this is my baby, this is my project, I put it together, the schedule together and seeing other team members be passionate about those areas that I was passionate about helped the delegation process, which then took stress off of my shoulders. In the past, I haven't always balanced work and life really well. And a lot of that was my own fault. I think that it's really important for me specifically that I am doing some type of movement every day. So after work, I'm getting outside and I'm taking a walk. I'm doing maybe a puzzle or something else that helps challenge my mind. And then, as well as having something I enjoy doing, like cooking dinner or reading a book. Those are the tools that I use today to try to balance on my work life schedule. right now, where I'm at right now, I feel very great in my position. At the end of the day, I'm like, if 95% of the time when I'm leaving work, I'm like, that was a great day, I
Yeah.
feel super lucky to feel
Yeah.
that way. And then be able to say, I can have the night to enjoy going for a walk or having dinner with my husband. I feel like I'm at a really good place right now. But sometimes in the beginning when I was micromanaging that and I was so
Yeah.
worked up over it, I
Mhm.
felt it everywhere. It carried over into my other relationships. It carried into after work. I was like, sometimes I get so upset. I was like, I can't sleep. And I'm like, Julia, this is crazy.
Yeah. Right. Like,
You know?
are we
Yeah.
solving world hunger? Like, what? Why are we so stressed out? Um,
Right.
my thing was the after hours, like working after hours, where I felt like, okay, well, now that I have this free time, I can go in and I can look at the schedule, or I can call in these insurance, or I can text this person and do blah, blah, blah. And it was like that anxiety where you went into work, you got off of work, maybe you even got off like 2 hours later, and then you get home, you're still thinking about work. So then you go and you open up your laptop. Then it's 9 o'clock at night. You're about to go to bed. You can't go to bed because now you're thinking about, oh, fudge, did I call Julia and tell her about that one patient? Shoot, I better text her. Now it's 11. You got a couple hours of sleep. You got to wake back up, be the first one in the office so you can make sure that Stephanie turned the gosh darn compressor on because she always forgets. I can go on and on about the horror that used to take over in me, and I just got like heart palpitations, like my heart just started beating thinking about it. But when I let that go, and like you said, I delegated that off to my team, but I think it also goes back to discipline for me. It once I'm done,
Mhm.
I'm done. If I didn't manage my time effectively and efficiently, then that means that I may have not been true to how long it's going to take me to get something done, and I need to rethink that. I need to rethink, did I just go in and do that report or do that treatment plan presentation just because Julia's back there talking it up with Susan and I'm not going to go bother her. I'm just going to go and present this treatment plan. Did that happen? And if it did, how did that make me feel? Is that a me problem or is that a them problem? Because if I hoarded those emotions and I didn't talk to them about it, then they have no idea that I'm going home. My heart is literally skipping a beat. I'm only getting 5 hours of sleep and I'm constantly thinking about work. They don't know that. And so I think for me, when I got into this position, I had to let go. And I also had to really own my actions that just because I'm jealous, Julia gets to go home, walk her dog, take a beautiful hike up the mountain, have a lovely dinner with her husband, and I'm eating Chick-fil-A sandwiches at 9:30 at night, still trying to do these darn claim forms or whatever it is that I'm working on. I think that's a me problem and not a Julia problem. So I think we also have to reflect back on ourselves and take accountability for our own actions and what matters most.
I love that. You said that perfectly. I'm like, there's nothing to add to that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, this is really great. I think that for a lot of people that are team members, I know we didn't even scratch the surface when it came to scheduling to production and how to really understand your practice. But I think the biggest takeaway for me in this interview with you is it's that camaraderie, it's communication, it's being able to build these relationships with your peers that at the end of the day, like you said, if I go home 95% of the time and I'm like, man, that was a damn good day, then I'm winning. And I think it's because we've built this relationship where we can communicate. So that would be my biggest takeaway from what you shared with us.
It was a super fun conversation. I think it always comes back down to communication. At the end of the day, that kind of is that foundation. And I think it's just saying for any type of scheduling to goal, any type of goal, we have to start someplace, right? We have to start someplace and say, this is where we're going to start and how can we move forward from here? And just having everybody remember that's listening, like we all started someplace. And we all, there was a point where I didn't know what I was doing, or I was struggling and stressed with what I was doing. But
Mhm.
time keeps moving. And if we do those small things every day, if we
Yep.
just take one step in the right direction each day and work on those things, it always gets better. Like it looks up from there.
Yeah. So if I can leave everyone that's listening, my top takeaways, one, understand what your practice goals are. If you have no idea what your daily goals are, your monthly or even your yearly goals, that's the first step. If you're in charge, like Julia, of scheduling your hygiene or even your doctor side of the schedule, that's the first step is to get a real clean understanding of what that goal is. And if you don't understand, you're not going to get anywhere. Let's just call it what it is. I'm calling it out. I'm being blunt. You're not going to get your job done and you're not going to leave feeling like, man, that was a damn good day. So that would be the first step for me is understand what that goal is. And then the next part of that is how can you collaborate with your team members to get you guys to that goal and what does it look like to get to that goal? And then the final piece of that is build a relationship with your team members where you guys can have trust, where you can own, I made a mistake, where you can own, hey, girl, we killed it today, right? And you can have those healthy conflicts, those healthy conversations with each other. So those would be my top 3 tips and tricks for anyone that's listening. And I just want to say thank you, Julia, for joining me on this amazing hour of Cytology 101. I know we'll be back on again chatting.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, Sydney. It was a blast.
So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. This has been another episode of Cytology 101. Today's episode was sponsored by FOA Coaching. If you would like to find out more about team training or personalized coaching, visit foacoaching.com. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Cytology 101. Until next time, friends.